Доброго
Good morning, esteemed participants. We are pleased to welcome you to the second National Roundtable discussions, which will be summing up the work on the state cadastre, summed up by the businesses and agricultural communities. All in all, we have conducted more than 6,000 roundtables, and we have touched upon the adoption of the new legislative acts related to the use and lease of the agricultural lands. We are planning to sum up what has changed, what are the developments, and then we will sum up what will be our expectations on the part of the powers and local governments with regards to the land reform. We understand that here we have the broadcast on the YouTube channel as well. It is available to be a witness of our roundtable discussions in the Facebook, and we have two language roundtable discussion, Ukrainian and English. A few words to be said about our roundtables that have been conducted over the past months. I have the presentation, and here I would like to say it is the second national roundtable discussion. All in all, we have conducted 48 roundtable discussions in all the regions. We have invited all the entities concerned, and also the representatives of the Notary Chamber also have joined us for these discussions, because for them they are very critical actors in this process. We had 32 requests, and we provided clarifications to the applicants what issues we have touched. The first two phases were devoted to the problems that existed over the past 20-30 years with agricultural producers, and we did not have an unambiguous answer. And based on these phases, we actually provided the feedback, and here the answers were given by the state cadastre agency. And with this information is now available with all the participants of the land market, and the other group of questions related to the regulation and decentralization, land transfer to the territorial communities, and at the level of communities also lots of questions arise because they did not know how they dispose these lands that were transferred to them. Sometimes we registered certain mistakes made by the representatives of the territorial communities, and we provided for them our clarification. Information awareness campaigns and activities are so important. We invite also the public at the local level. In order for us, it's important to provide a smooth process of the land use and the control of the processes related to the land market transformations. Also, there were questions related what will be the superseding right, how to buy up this or that parcels of land that were in use but were not in ownership. So some other group of questions related to deregulation and decentralization. For example, the local governments also they raise the question how, for example, to take up decisions on no-cost privatization of lands. And with these decisions to be taken, by the 2/3 of the votes on the total votes at the level of Rada. And as we did not have such global changes when the main office of the state cadastre, for example, they started drafting the law on the no-cost transfer of the land, and it was not clear actually how to work, whether it's necessary to have approved such drafts or no. In all the regions, all in all, no-cost privatization actually was a very critical issue. And all the answers normally are provided by the state cadastre agency. We understand that clarification, it's not the regulatory act, but this allows at least to have one point standing in order all Radas actually will take the same decisions in the same circumstances and situations. And this will allow us also to see what will be procedures at the court level, because with this we will have more practical knowledge. Another group of questions is the land transfer for the individuals, for the subsistence economy, for the vegetable production, and these lands could be transferred to the citizens, and it was a sort of a privileged under which it was initially planned to have the land auctions. And based on the outcomes of our roundtable discussions, for us, it was not acceptable, for example, to have in one hand 600 hectares of land. And the acreage could not exceed more than a hectare of land for these purposes. But there are very many questions that arise, or what they should do with all the permits that had been issued before, whether they have the right to adopt it, could they be a signatory on the land lease agreements, and so on and so forth, whether the right will be given to renew these land lease agreements on the same terms and conditions. And all these issues also were in our focus. We understand now that clarifications that are given to the communities, it's very important process. Also, agricultural sector reps also communicated to us some questions. Actually, beginning from the 1st of July this year, we actually switched to the completely new life because some people really had some expectations, but today really we are in the process and everything can be summed up at roundtable discussions. And actually, one issue is very critical, is the acreage of land in the hands of one individual. The person cannot have more than 100 hectares of lands of agricultural purpose. But it does not cover the acreage of parcels that have been in ownership of this individual prior to the 1st of July 2021. Here we have very many different opinions. Some people believe that what has been in ownership prior to the start of the land reform should not be taken into consideration. But some people The point is, for example, now we have witnessed the situations when one person has more than 2,000 hectares of land. That's why, for us, it's very important to understand how we should treat this or that provision of the law in order the interpretation of the norms given in the legislation should be the same with all the participants of this market. And then for us, it will be very important. But we now realize in full that based on the resolution adopted, so all the acreage of land should be taken into account, including the land that was in ownership before the 1st of July 2021. And these clarifications should be delivered also for the notary specialists in order, for example, they will not encounter the situation that could be associated with the gaps in legislation. With a number of hundreds of hectares, whether, for example, we have a married couple, and for us it's very important how to count whether by person, if it is a married couple, or whether they should also the institute of the joint common property. It's very difficult to check all the marriages that were stopped early, actually. Maybe there are cases when, for example, one of the spouses is based not in Ukraine, but based outside of Ukraine. For us, this also is associated with some difficulties in accounting of the land that could be with the married couple. Checking of all the situations related to all legal entities where this person also could be a participant or a beneficiary. For example, if it is just a person who has never had no land and just wanted to have some land, let's say 100 of hectares, it's okay. But for us, it's important to check really what is the engagement of this person as the legal entity actor in some other transactions that have been effected earlier. With this, we understand that there will be a much higher load with the notary offices because they will be supposed to check all the situation. Automation of all the checks, checking the data and information, it is so critical. For us, it's important to automate the checkup procedures. And with the notary staff, it's very difficult to check what's going on with the land parcels located in the occupied territories in Ukraine. Because, some documents actually exist only in the paper forms, they are not in the e-form. Actually, the state cadastre allows us to get certain automation of these processes, but not all the information. Very often we encounter certain errors. For example, the person changes the passport, but this has not been entered in the state cadastre data. For example, changes were made with some other circumstances. And as to the methods of alienation also, because we have a certain list of the methods of alienation of the land, that's why sometimes in the resolution in the cabinet of the resolution on the annihilation issued by the Cabinet of Ministers, there is slightly different treatment of this issue. Also, during our last roundtable discussion, we tackled the topic why really land reform is so slow, why we cannot just pull together all the efforts and start more actively this process. But practically, all the responsibilities on the delivery of not a full data is with the notary offices, because notary offices issue the protocol and they signed, but actually no responsibilities are with those who deliver and submit the information. But for us, you see, also there are some sanctions like confiscation of the land, but everything is so vague and not blurred and not so clear, really. And in case, for example, you know, if this norm is not compiled by the person, also there were some sanctions, but they are not clearly spelled out. Actually, for us, it's very important, you see, actually, to understand, actually, owners know better than any notary specialist what acreage of land is in one's ownership. That's why we believe that more sanctions for untrue or not correct data provided, information provided, should be with the owners. And also 12 up to 12 sotkas of land are the parcels of land are under horticulture. And also we had a sort of a very confusing situation with annihilation of these lands under horticulture. And there were proposals to exclude such parcels of land from the general procedures. And this is the end of my story. I would like to thank you for your attention. If any question you have, please feed your questions to our chat available with our participants either in the YouTube or in the Facebook. And now we get to our discussion. Today with us, during our first session, Sergei Kubach, who is the director on the implementation of the land reform of the agro project supported by USAID. Mikhailo Kopylov is representing the Farmers Rada. Sergei Rybalko represents the agricultural sector. He's the owner of an agricultural company. Actually, he will share with us whether their expectations are consistent with the realities today. And the floor is given to Mikhailo. Mikhailo, today you represent agro producers who are the members of the Ukrainian Agro Council.
Ну, те, що були озвучені проблеми, і взагалі
What is your opinion about the problems of the land reform? I would like to say that whatever the land reform starts, it shows to us that the land law was accepted and adopted as a good law, and all the problems which arise, they are technical problems mainly, and they should be solved technically. And whatever you are saying today, in our opinion, would be necessary and better to solve by automation, because all registers we have in fact electronic, and whatever the state should do, it should do an automated system which would give the notary the data how much land was concentrated by a person through legal entities and so on. So this would be the most appropriate way, and that's how we can solve the market issues. Any market will require to make any transaction the least expensive, because these costs they're not productive, and they do not create anything. Whatever we do to reduce them, we would do better things. So now we see that no scandals arise. Until now we don't see anything, and we don't see a boom demand, and we we know that now the people will come to all these things through different approach, and in average we understand that there will be no boom requests and the situation will be quiet. And now we see that no needs would be necessary to bypass the law. We don't see the situations when people say, so look, there are such holes in the law. And until now, I like very much that there is a new form which was created and nobody found the holes in the law. I would like to facilitate, to greet everyone, because sometimes we needed to patch such holes. In second situation, there are some holes which are in mess. So I think that the beginning of the land market started quite well, and actually we saw technical issues on the surface, and really we expected for them. And second part is that unfortunately when such big huge things happen, so the weakest things they break, so often problems come up, those which existed before. So the example you were saying correctly, that by now the formalization of land operations, the transactions, they are very difficult, and that make this lack of notaries in a village, in rural area, very acute. But it existed before, and if we automate anything, the land market will increase the load of notaries in the rural areas, in villages. So they didn't have this work before, and now they have this work, and we should solve this issue in which way we should create the number, bigger number of notaries. What are the problems? I would not call the name of the region. So a group of association decided to the notary to become a notary. He or she was a lawyer, but it is not enough, because he or she should pay bribes to pass the exams, and it is not a new thing, but now it becomes very acute. Because this is a problem which appeared now. So what we needed to focus now, the efforts which we needed to do to make the land market going smoothly, and the problems which we said with the land plots for gardening and horticulture and vegetable growing, these problems to be solved, we need to solve what we had before, to make that the people can come into the market quietly, that they do not require money, but not knowledge, but not money. And it was previously we needed to protect the activities of notaries, and we needed to create the system where there will be automatic reports on how much land anybody has, and then the law will work. And the last thing I would like to say is that we have the feeling that this market will not be so active as it was envisaged 1 year ago. It looks like that the people don't have this burning desire to sell their land. Of course, there are such people, but we will speak about this. But now we have the feeling that about 10% of the whole land bank that would be sold, owned by individuals during 1 year. It looks like we will not see this indicator, and I think that is quite well, because and I think that the individuals who live in villages, they will have this asset, and which will create a passive income now and further on, some cushion socially, and the people who help the country exist, they will remain with this social cohesion. And I think that with development of agriculture industry, the rent will be growing not so fast as it is now, but because of that there are some efficiency ceilings. But this process will continue, and in this way we advise the people who own these plots whether they would like to sell them. Maybe they would better keep them and keep them as a stable source of income and to solve their problems. Thank you, Mihailo, and we will continue our discussion. And now we have in connection the consultant and the help assistant of Mykola Solsky, the head deputy of Ukraine, head of agrarian committee of Verkhovna Rada. And please, Sergei, join our discussion. We have a issue to discuss. What are the legislatory acts which are discussed by the Verkhovna Rada? What are the problem issues which were found in the existing legislature acts, concentration of lands, and so on. Sergei, please join us. Good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation. What can we say? First, impressions on the start of land market, land plots. Really, there are lots of sayings and some concerns which were said that the things would happen, but the practice shows that there was no catastrophe. The process is going very slowly, but the main problems that arise, they are related to their technical issues, the issues connected to knowledge of notaries, possibilities of any person to be the new owner of land used for agriculture. And when the law was developed and people thought that it would be that the check would be automatic, and really all registered as they are electronic and they are related to identifiers and cadastre numbers, and in principle the huge technical problem to make an application which would be capable to check such entries. There would be not difficult, but it did not happen like it was expected, and the decision of the cabinet of ministers appeared very late. It could be adopted even 6 months before, but unfortunately, secondly, the automation was not developed, and here we found the problems which were very old, which existed for years. First of all, we have not very perfect register of own rights and registration of small individual entrepreneurs, and lots of errors in state cadastre, because until recent years the information was chaotically entered, and it was not checked. So you know it was in state committee of lands, state cadastre, because it was a total corruption, and it was not envisaged for checking. And but these problems in principle, so we detected them very brightly when the land law started, and it means that these issues would be solved gradually. And now in Ministry of Justice and the State Cadastre, we have the discussion how to introduce the automation, and of course related to problems which appeared. Unfortunately, the law which was adopted, it is a political compromise, and unfortunately, there are lots of norms. For example, transactions, they would be very alone. Lots of things were said about this initially, but lots of people who would be the owners were not included into the people of the list of acquiring the rights. So it was it was the compromise. We did not expect to involve the companies with hundreds and thousands of shareholders, but so now let this law work, and maybe sometimes we would reduce some norms, and we will introduce a new types of checking for concentration and other things. They would be checked very easily, especially on some technical and very easy way. And so when we will sell the land for agriculture, we will reduce and solve gradually all problems. But I would like to also remark that the land reform now, it is considered very often as putting order into the agriculture use land, but it is not correct. We don't have only agriculture use land. We have lots of other lands, and the problems with them they're huge as well. So we have registered already, and some draft laws as they adopted in the first hearing. Some of them are they are developed, and I think that Parliament activity will be very high. What are the initiatives? First of all, we have registered the draft law, a big one, which is capable to change the land legislation concerning the lands which are used by the companies from municipal and state industry sector. We have the propositions to refuse the Soviet rudiment and shift from eternal use of land and to change it and replace it by market approach to use the land. So you know how the state companies they using the land, even there is not a person who would not say how the Academy of Sciences uses its land and the Ministry of Defense, and so these organizations then they use these lands permanently, but they are using it as a greedy man. They cannot use it properly, but they do not give it to anybody else. So otherwise, we see the contracts, fictitious contracts which has been developed on temporary use, on temporary rent, and so it produces bribes for use, bribes for fictitious registration, and the permanent tenant who signed these contracts, it is under permanent threat of punishment. So we propose to shift from such approach to give the right for permanent provision for rental of agriculture use of such lands. And also we have the huge problem of building of buildings on lands of state lands. We on lands of Ministry of Defense on other municipal entities. We have huge buildings and multi-story buildings which are built through different schemes, and nothing is paid to state budget, and everything passes through bribes. And here we will have the possibility to provide this land for auction, and they will get their money for improvement of state of the company, and to pay some portion to the budget. Also for agricultural use, there is a proposition to provide it for rent, and it will take the use of this land into normal and correct legal use. Also, we adopted in first hearing the draft law. We know that there are lots of companies, all managerial bodies like Academy of Sciences and state companies who have the land plots which were provided for their employees, and they do not use them. And there are companies, and they wanted to use these lands. Also, the fund of state properties, they have plans to use how to use such lands. So the detailed procedure for privatization of these lands is developed, and the distribution of a land plan between the officials of these companies and how they will be privatized, and also there is a plan how to provide land to participants of military actions. It is being developed also in the committee, and we plan that in the autumn there will be some addition, because there are political motives, but the discussion is being done in the agricultural committee, and I think that by the autumn will come to the discussion on consolidation of agricultural land, because the solution of patch type of use of lands, it is a mature problem. So there is a draft law which is being registered, and we wait until this discussion will be started, and we will listen to participants of the market and executive authorities, and maybe with common efforts we will try to develop this consolidation scheme which will satisfy everyone. And well, we have lots of plans, and we have in plans how to solve in legislatory way the distribution and solution of a problem between the buildings which are built on the land plots, and so we have some initiative and which are developed to solve this problem decisively. So we have lots of plans, and the legislatory activity in the land industry will be very high.
Дякуємо.
Thank you very much. We have a question to you. You are the representative of the MPs, and very often we have the rhetorics. Why we do implement such a land reform that is highly limited, but we have been discussing some compromises. You have mentioned this in order actually to start with the legislation support of certain actions. Antithesis agreement also will be a very important milestone, because this will allow us to have a long-term agreement on certain lands. But actually, do you envisage to provide some legislation for the long-term leaseholding? Why for emphasis, actually we did not provided the preferential right for the land parcel buyout. Emphasis, it is a sort of a sale, a type of sale. And actually, the law, actually, we have never covered in the law the privilege right for the purchase of land based on the emphasis agreement. Actually, for us, it was important not only to have anything on paper, but provide the workable mechanisms. But actually, this right has never been linked to emphasis and emphasis agreement. As there are very many different mechanisms related to privatization. But once again, I would like to mention that we have never covered the privileged right in this regard. And we are not planning to have some cordial changes in this sphere. We don't actually see that there is a sort of an urgent need in the buyout of these lands. The point is, when these agreements were concluded before, they have never provided a sort of a privileged right for their privatization. It's true. We don't want to introduce new and more limitations, what will not be workable. Thank you very much. Also, we have a question in the chat. As mainly the owners of agricultural lands, this is sometimes people, elderly people. For us, it's important, you see, it's difficult to explain for the elderly woman that the money, in case she plans to sell her parcel in her ownership, will transfer money on account. So cash settlements, whether they could be envisaged, maybe you have some plans in order to relax the situation based on this example, for example. Actually, it seems to me that here I don't see that to be encountered certain complexities and difficulties. But I understand that sometimes some politicians would like to put an attention to this. We understand if we do have non-cash payments, it will allow us to witness all the transactions and to be in a full know what really happens with the buy and sell deals. Thank you. Thank you, Sergey. We have the representatives of agrarian business here. Sergey, the floor is open for you. What is your impression on the land reform launch? For you, what will be critical issues for you at the moment? Actually, we tried to work with the two notary specialists in order to see how we will move ahead. For us, it was important to check what will be the time needed. If, for example, there is no any burdensome on this a parcel of land, we realize that the transaction could be accomplished within 2-3 days. In case we have more embarrassments on this or that parcel, if, for example, the land of parcel under the land lease agreement or maybe some other transactions will be envisaged, so then such a transaction could take sometimes even 3 and 4 months because such parcel of land should be traded in e-trading through e-trading mechanisms. The point is, we understand for the notary specialists, it's a very big load to check really how much, is the real land in ownership of the person who plans to purchase and acquire this or that parcel of land in addition. For the person that has never declared their incomes. For example, for the person, it's difficult to prove what were the means under which the person earlier acquired this or that parcel of land. We realize exactly based on this example, we could say that these situations could delay the process. And we understand that certain procedures are not fully clear for all the people. Notary specialists realize that normally one agreement to be concluded on the buy and sell of the land could be done within a day. But if we check what is the number of the notary specialists working in the land transformation, land market sphere, we realize that we should also keep in mind how many people will be planning to sell their land. We understand that this process, no doubt, could be simplified through the automation processes. Certain procedures, no doubt, could be simplified with this, and we realize that each transaction will be very typical with regards to timing. Agricultural lands, including dachas lands, including subsistence economy lands. We understand that all these also very critical. For example, sometimes if the person plans to sell the land under one's dacha, maybe the cost of the transaction will be too costly for the person, even more than the real cost of the land under dacha or the land under the subsistence economy. So for us, it's very important to understand that all the lands in the acreage lower than 2 hectares, they should not be under the procedures established, but earlier we had certain procedures to the acreage of land below 2 hectares. For us, it's important also, there are some lands under agricultural production, but they are not used for the agricultural production. Also, this requires a special focus. No doubt, procedure is complex. We should work more on it. For us, it's important to understand how will be means testing, how all this works, and then actually for in also the land on the dachas and on the individual subsistence economy. Now we see if you have a very small acreage of land and huge land you own, procedure is the same. For us, it's important to have a more simplified procedure for the smaller acreage of land. Otherwise, it will impede the process. Because this process existed because actually earlier weeks there was a procedure to sell the land on the dacha, to sell the land on the subsistence economy of individuals. And we understand that it should probably do work in this area the way I have explained. Maybe you have the parcels of land and the shared land acreage more than 2 hectares. But if, for example, the acreage of land below 2 hectares, I deliver the opinion concerns. We are talking over not the shared lands, but we are talking over the lands, for example, that were given to teachers, to social workers. Actually, when we speak about shared lands, I fully agree with you, but I mainly focus not on the shared lands. Here I would like to say the following. Firstly, we don't understand really how many teachers, how many social workers have this or that acreage of land. We perfectly know that in some cases that it is de facto, it is concentrated in one person, and mainly it's more than 1,000 hectares of land. It's the same agricultural land as others. This is agricultural land. In my opinion, probably we should work slightly different. If we change the procedure for the acreage lower than 2,000 hectares, 2 hectares, probably here it will bring more complications. As the average acreage of the shared land is 1.1 hectare. How people will sell it? If the procedure, for example, to renew, for example, their documents, maybe all the renewal of the documents will be more costly. The point is that there are different situations with the shared lands and the lands that are under this procedure. And the figures are very different across Ukraine. Sergei Belenko mentioned quite accurately as to the non-cash settlements. We understand that if you would like to see that norms are workable on the beneficiary rights, on the privileged rights, we understand, okay, we understand what is cash payments. Cash payments is not the helper. Here some questions also arise with the shared land owner. Also there could be some on the table agreements if we allow cash payments. If, for example, one individual has plans to violate the law, they will always look for the methods how to do this. That's why actual undesirable behavior modes should be stopped with the law and legislation. As I mentioned before, elderly people, you see, for them it's very difficult to associate what is written in the agreement, not seeing money. We understand the mentality of elderly people, and we understand that for these people it's very critical not to go deep in this paperwork, to understand what is non-cash settlements. maybe certain simplifications should be included, but for us it's important to think really what they should be. Sergei Kubach, the director of the Land Reform Implementation Agro, supported by the USAID. What is your impression on the launch of the land market in this country? The USAID Agro project, we continue the discussion we started last time. I would like to welcome the parliament, the government, and the Ukrainian Agro Rada with a successful launch of the land market in this country. It's a unique market. What happened on the 1st of July? First of all, the constitutional rights of Ukrainian citizens were renewed because the Humans Convention mentioned that with the moratorium, this convention was violated, and we reinstated the right of individuals. It was the well-controlled and consistent process according to the model that is included in the law. And Ukraine Agrarian Rada is in full law how this process was going. From the 1st of July, actually, we have 774 agreements on buy and sell of the land. Actually, it's a very small number of transactions. It's less than of 10% on all the transactions that took place earlier. International experiences, we are as experts could say that all the transactions, all the procedures, notary support, they should work in the manner in order not to interfere in the land market. We should implement this or that checks and audits, procedures, only with one purpose. They should not interfere the natural process. No problems. As it was said, 3,500 notary specialists work with the state cadastre. If actually we assume that one notary specialist within one day will work with one deal, so daily this notary specialist could work with 3,500 deals. So we understand that with today's scope of transaction, our notary specialists perfectly scope. We understand that it's not above our expectations. We understand how many corruption bypass schemes exists. We would like to have a legalized land market through which we will get land tax proceeds to the market. And we understand that certain checks and audits should be in place. We should check all the land parcels and plots that do exist. And this requires certain time. Definitely, the notary specialist should do all these checks in full. And it's a normal procedure. So in my opinion, everything goes as we planned, and farmers could buy out land on the normative values. And then we understand that so the market is evolving, and we are, as the USAID supported agro project, we realize that there are very many issues in our focus today. We understand that certain priorities there are, and for us it's important to understand what is our role in this process. First of all, we put our prime attention, as it is a law 1423. Formerly it was 2194. And this law pertains to the inventory of the lands inventory. And in August this year, we'll be implementing this law in full. And it will be very critical for deregulation and anti-corruption fight in the land market sphere. Electronic land trading law also very critical, because there will be no collusions in this sphere, because we see also, and we do work, the law on the land planning number 711. This law will come in effect very soon, and actually with this law territorial communities will have all the chances to have all their land planning, to have public hearings, because for every member of the territorial community the right is given to take participation in discussion with regards to this or that land parcel. It means that territorial communities for the next 1-2 years will work hard on the land planning, and then they will publish in full this information. The Institute of No Cost Transfer of Lands we understand that we have here in Ukraine a certain portion of land in shade. With regards to raidery, here also it's important to have a close look on this situation. Those who acquired this or that land, but those who did not pay taxes, reasons behind are very important to be checked. And for us it's important to develop and prepare certain mechanisms and actions to keep an eye on these issues that I have described. We believe that that also lots of work to be done also on the land consolidation. Yesterday, our parliament did not vote for this law for the second time. We realized that probably more work to be done on this draft in order to have this law voted. Land consolidation issues, and it's very critical, and this will create environment also for the amelioration of lands and clarification and advocacy activities also very critical. And once again, I would like to greet everybody engaged in this process, because we have a successful launch of land market, and I believe and would like to wish a success in this sphere. Thank you very much, Sergey.
У нас дуже там жвава дискусія, говорять.
So we have the chat on YouTube, and 90% of participants say there is no booming demand because the notaries do not want to touch this. But and about this and lots of other things we will speak in our second session, where will be participants of all these spheres from the ministry, from Geocadastre and local self-government, and it will be very interesting. Please stay with us. In 1-2 minutes we will continue, and thanks a lot to all of these participants, our participants of this panel, and we hope that everything will happen, and the consolidation and melioration we will need to continue this, and the notaries, we will need the notaries. You did not count it as necessary, but because out of 3,000 they live, there are only 1,000 who live in the areas of agricultural land, and we will need 500 contracts per day. By 250, it will be only 12,500 plots registered per year. But we need 6 million plots, and I think that the booming demand should be there. And I agree with Mikhailo. We need automation. We will need new notaries, and we will not have enough notaries. 1 second or just couple of minutes, there will be representatives of Ministry of Justice, and they will be comment us where we can get notaries, and because we need them. Lots of people need just
Шановні учасники, ми раді вас вітати.
Dear participants, we are happy to greet you again. Thank you for staying with us. And we are starting our next second session with representatives of Geocadastre, Ministry of Justice, local community, and self-government authorities. And so we start with our first guest, first deputy of Chairman of Geocadastre, Mr. Mirosichenko, who will tell us about the first results of monitoring of the land and the role of Geocadastre in the land reform and what we can hope for. Can we expect this automation which we are speaking at the first session? Anatoly, good afternoon. Good afternoon, and as results of monitoring, you know them mostly, and they are published on the official website of State Geocadastre, and I would like to note that the monitoring of land as a part of monitoring of land envisaged by the law. It was a novelty, and it started after the law when it was effective, and the Article 25 was saying that the monitoring inside the land monitoring should be published in the website of the Central Executive Authority. And this formula says it is a Geocadastre, and this formula is not new, and it is being implemented since 2017, and the work is being done on monitoring, and we understood that it was about introduction of the land market which is being introduced, and this society will wish to see what the processes are going on. And before this law was adopted, and before the decrees of the Cabinet of Ministers were developed, the principle was developed. Now it would be only agreed with the local executive authorities. So we introduced the monitoring of land and land relations, and they are published on official website. Any person concerned can see the amount of lands alienated, will see the prices and the rental rates, and the most important, the list of people who have more than 100 hectares of agricultural land in their own ownership. And a very important fact is that by the 1st of July 2021, Ukraine has more than 1,000 people who had more than 100 hectares in their private ownership, and more than 100 legal entities. So we will continue with this monitoring. We are planning that to make this monitoring system a very massive system, and with possibility to analyze the data, and think that two main issues which arise, and the concerns of the society, the system of monitoring gives two answers. The system is being improved constantly. Several examples, by the way, we were speaking today that there's lots of incorrect information in Geocadastre, and lots of cases were found out that the area of land plot was shown as number is square meters, but the system looks at these numbers as hectares. So if we can cover on the land plot, we could see this 10,000 times bigger than it would be in reality, and it would distort the situation. As a reaction to this problem, we decided to to calculate the area not manually, but the land which should be defined by the coordinates of the land plot. So it put out all these errors, and it allowed us to react to all these errors in the geocadastre and to improve all these errors in the geocadastre. But it is like it is. Lots of things in the system monitoring will be found out, and the system will allow to correct all these errors. As dynamics, it was talking about today, despite all these errors which may arise in the cadastre, in the state register of rights of ownership and incomplete data in these systems, but these data will show you the character of processes on the market. And among the interesting things that if we compare the photos of the current state done every week, we see that the number of entities with more than 100 hectares changed in 2 weeks as compared to the 1st of July, and despite of each of these boards and some mechanisms of checking for net risk, today we have 4% for position longer list of people who have more than 100 hectares, and people who have all more than 100 people. It is 85 plots. As for legal entities, the number of legal entities, the areas reduced. So I support fully the idea to reduce the mechanism of control, the complexity of this mechanism control, whether you have in your ownership. So there is a mechanism which is a procedural mechanism and very burdensome for people who are taking part in the transactions, which is very difficult and result in mechanisms. And so we see that the procedural control does not assure the results, and I think that the society pays very big price for this control, and I think that we need to concentrate on the resulting control. We will look at those for entities which were added, 85 plots which were added, and reasons could be different, and in some cases there could be errors, so someone could inherit something. But first of all, I think that there are plots were acquired through civil purchase, and state cadastre would introduce them under Article 145 of the Land Code, and as we search in the geocadastre, we provided such possibility. We assured the possibility for notaries to join as a state cadastre in a simplified way. We also we expected the storm of applications in first days of land law implementations. We had even more than 1,000 applications, and additional people were involved, and so it was about one day for processing of applications, and we had the chance to avoid this blocking of state cadastre system. So that is like this, and as a lawyer, as a scientist who for many years is in land law sphere, so I would like to congratulate all, and I'm not very happy about the dynamics. It would, if it would be dynamic, more than dynamic, it would be more better for the society. But the reason is the conservative kind of the law, and the people would like to sell more. And but if you put yourself into the place of agricultural tenant, I would say I would think even twice whether I needed to be involved in the purchase of such land plots, which should be considered in so difficult way. But I think that lots of people will still continue, but it will be related, of course, with this elimination of this violation of a human right of land use, and I think that it will be achieved. Thank you, Anatoly, for this possibility and this optimistic consideration. I would like to focus on monitoring, and of course we understand that not so many people would be capable to pass by this limitation 100 hectares, and you will see this easily, and the geocadastre is the organism which will we will confiscate, but even any notary will pass this transaction. So it is for sure, and you can be assured, even if you look at the official website of the Geocadastre, every week there are lists which are created. So maybe some more automation could be introduced, and these new form positions, we will think about them, which were added in the first half of July, and but we see these 4 positions, and we continue to work on them, and we started to introduce Article 145 of the Land Code, and technical requests on the website should provide for bigger number of data, series of data with even cadastre numbers. So we should not easily just see the 4 new positions, but we should see that person number 25, we should depersonalize the data on people because according to personal data law. But we can see that person like this got more than 100 hectares, and with cadastre numbers. Here we do not violate the personal data law, and anybody could be capable to check who was the person, and all the people will be under very thorough control of the community and under microscope, and not only the buyers who will bypass with additional plots, but state geocadastre will be under control, and everyone will see what happens and what is going on, how geocadastre fulfills its mission. Anatoly, please. There another question. There was a discussion at the previous roundtable with the Geocadastre representative about confiscation. We understood the historian confiscation, but where get this the launching? Because we understand that in the regions there are several laws or should be passed through public prosecutor's office or the local government authorities. So today we have the problem of temporary financing of heads of state geocadastre, and this is a problem of temporary character. I hope it will be solved, and the resources are necessary. We have debts of the previous periods, and about the speaking about the debts of the proceedings which were lost. So there are lost cases, and we had to build this activity in this way that there were decisions against the heads of the Geocadastre who do not take the fees. But the problem is, and I think that the problems will be solved. In Italy, there is another request and a question from the chat. I think it is topical one, and different entities ask from local authorities different confirmation letters from the tax authorities, for notaries, and the problem is whether there will be inventory of the lands if you will provide a form from Geocadastre land certificates, how many lands it is used by this person or not, if it is specified by the law, if do you need this.
It's true, such an evidences that existed before 2016, they have been cancelled, and also Ministry of Economy is planning to include other forms that to be in effect. The idea is that all the information necessary for this or that purpose should be obtained from the state land cadastre. In order not to pay for any paperwork, all this should be retrieved from the state cadastre. Search actually could be done very easily by the name of the pageant, but by the name of the object. And for us it's important also this to have it opened not only for the notaries but also for the other objects of process. In any case, today the option is available. Actually, what actually we can do after the 1st of July, all the data should be fed for the rights of the on the ownership. We understand the functional of the state cadastre information support should be fully improved. For us, it's important to understand the question today arises whether everything to be now, in my opinion, that fact, whether you have 100 hectares or whether you have 1,000 hectares, everything should be taken into account what has been acquired earlier. I'm actually not a supporter of the liberal land market, everything to be decided by the court. But for us it's important to have a sort of a single treatment, because we should enforce the law as it is given. Because we understand some people are adherents of the liberal land market. If, for example, the person has for some people, really, it's not a problem if the person wants to buy 10 more hectares in addition to 2,000 hectares, which are not taken into account. For some people, it's a concern. For us, it's important to understand the control to be exercised. We should give a clear message to the individuals, to the notaries, to the state cadastre agencies, that is a controlling agency. Whether, for example, there is this or that excess above this or that limit, whether this land excess to be confiscated, whether this land excess to be We understand that the court litigations, it's also the issue. We understand also that there are some resolutions that fix these issues. We will be implementing this resolution 637. If, for example, the person has 100 hectares and the person would like to acquire 1 more hectares, no doubt we will take this into consideration. We have the first Deputy Minister of Justice here. We have the first Deputy of the State Cadastre Agency. Maybe you will provide for us some clarifications, really, because you know all these issues that should go along the same treatment. Actually, I have disclosed my opinion. We understand that for us it's very important what will be the standing of the MPs on this issue. Actually, we could write any communication to this or that agency. But you know, treatment of the law, this is very important for us. I have already disclosed my opinion. Any official communication, even we sign it with our blood, it will be the communication, because for us it's important to rely on the rule of the court. We understand that streamlining in rules and norms are very important. And now we would like to Evgeny Korovets is the first Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Justice. Your opinion, could you comment on the topic we have already discussed, or maybe to speak on what is the overall judgment of the Ministry of Justice on the launch of the land reform? I greet all the Ukrainians with the launch of the land market in this country, because every individual, beginning from the 1st of July this year, could implement their constitutional rights. And I would like to remind you that through the 1st January 2024, in the ownership of individuals, there could be the acreage of land parcels under ownership should not exceed 100 hectares. This requirement does not cover land parcels acquired before. Let's actually think what is given in the law. Requirement sounds as worded as should not exceed, and it does not cover the parcels acquired. For us, it's very important before the law came into effect. Maybe some individuals acquired maybe 2,000. So legislator clearly mentioned that this should not be confiscated. Let's imagine somebody has come to the market arena and they would like to acquire a land parcel and could be transferred in the ownership of this individual. In this sense, land parcels probably could be covered with this wording, should not exceed before the we understand the wording as given in the law. For us, it's very important to have a clear understanding as to the wording given in the law. Here, I support Anatoly, Mr. Anatoly, some other reasons and grounds for the conservative treatment. And actually, to stand for the oppositional opinion, it will be very difficult. We understand this is not the end of the discussion. In a couple of years, probably, if any subject initiate this or that issue related to this or that rule of the court, probably we will include some comments on this. And not only the Ministry of Justice, but the state cadastre, which is a notary chamber, they are not the panacea that this or that notary could have, for example, the alternative thinking. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it could be a case. But actually, for us, it's important probably with the conservative portion of notaries. Probably we could actually give them a sort of a direction with our comments. But there should be some wisdom that before 2024, the cap should be is in place before 2024, because from 2024 this cap will be up to 10,000 hectares. We understand that there is a big difference between 100 hectares and 10,000 hectares. So we understand from the year 2024, we will have a more normal situation. The person who acquired, in addition to 2,000, for example, another 2,100 hectares, for us it's very important not to treat this or that case as a tragedy. As to the role of the Ministry of Justice in the launch of the land market, no doubt here we are strong supporters of this process, and we have contributed lots of efforts in order actually to have the unanimous non-unambiguous treatment of this or that norms. Actually, we have been working with the different entities, with the Ministry of Finance and with the State Cadastre Agency. We were not the key developers of these laws, but after 2 weeks when the market was launched, there are some comments, some remarks that are linked to certain issues. Actually, we take into account the standing of the State Cadastre Agency, and for us, it's very important to really what information to be included on the land parcel, that is code of the land parcel under the ownership of this or that individual. We understand there are some gaps in the procedures. No doubt we are planning to rectify this, and we believe that with time, probably more improvements to be included in order to make this process more smooth. The land market actually works as a very complex model that is multi-parametric multi-parametric situation. The complexity is here. Because some people see lots of politics around the land market. No doubt there are some statements that are purely declarative. As for example, some people put their voice in order to add also cash payments that could be available with certain categories of population. But for us, you know, it's my subjective opinion, the practice will be not always, for example, when they have for example, cash payment, not always this or that deal could be recognized as null and void. So that's why for us important that this public order is violated is when we have cash settlement against non-cash settlements. We don't know how this judicial practice will treat this, whether it could be the reason not to consider this transaction as valid. I don't know, but how it will go. But as to, for example, non-effectiveness and confiscation of the deal, you know, some no technical difficulties will be added, I understand, to this process. Unfortunately, only through judicial procedures we could resolve these certain cases. And we understand that there are certain reasons under which this or that deal could be assumed as null and void, and restitutions of the parties. The taker taker could be abolished the right for the land, and in my opinion, it's a rhetoric question. Legislator formulated these issues in the way I have conveyed for you. What is interesting for the people in the aspect of Ministry of Justice, what will happen if the process is not so smooth? We understand they should keep an eye on this process from anti-raiding processes, and we believe that in this sense also there are different lands in this country, not only agricultural lands, and I don't see that there will be any difference in resolving these issues. We know that certain embezzlements and abuses of the law could take place, but they could be addressed and resolved through the effective procedures and through the effective functional under the Ministry of Justice. The registration, in order to cancel the cancel of this or that of this act should be abolished, because based on the procedures effective, we believe that we understand that in case of such situations, no doubt we will have certain categories of individuals that should go to litigation in order to resolve their problems. Because, you know, seizures, no doubt, you know, for us in hands we have certain instruments through which we could operate, but we don't expect that there will be a very high scope of such situations. We have very many cases with the agricultural lands related to the leaseholding lands today. And closing up, wrapping up my story, I'm really impressed on the way the land market was launched in this country. And actually, earlier I had no chance to comment what was said by the other speakers, but I understand that this is it's a step-by-step process because lots of laws actually has come into effect very close to the date of the 1st of July 2021. That's why for me it was very surprising, positively surprising to hear that exactly on the first day we have already some deals with the land, and it's very good that very many people have switched to the process. we understand that the data and information is fed to the register, and I join my colleagues who were speakers today. Actually, we witnessed a very good story of the land market launching in this country. We could compare with some other campaign launching in the country, and I should say that it's really a very positive example. And we believe that there will be a sort of a good feedback from the market, because we have been talking over for dozens of years that the land market data has never been updated, because we understand that this is a true land market launching, lots of work to be done. And we know that with every passing day, we will be improving our work, putting more efforts to have the effective and efficient land market in this country. Thank you very much.
Мав безпосередню причасність до написання постанови.
So you mentioned yesterday about the decree of the cabinet minister about the checking of own acquirer. Do you think it was not so difficult about the check of members of the family on the common ownership inside the marriage? Because it could be marriages, previous ones abroad, and without a relation between the members of the families. So it can prevent the notaries. You said that notaries they did not have this fear, but some of them fear until now. So of course it becomes difficult. But the institution of common property shows here in some jurisdictions there is no such institution exist, and in my dreams maybe in some decades our country will change this social shift to this field. But I just can feel the discussion. So it is difficult on the one side. A classic case when the notary sees the register and according to the access of the notary to acts of legal status and looks through personal life of the acquirer, whether married or not, and if he or she were married, there are some land plots whether they were acquired during this period, and then the notary checks the reasons of the getting the land plot. Getting the land plot between the marriage does not mean that it was common. It could be inheritance. It could be privatization, and the notary should check all this. But on the other side, whether the Ministry of Justice had this possibility to differentiate and make this institution of common property some separate one. And as for the foreign marriages, I agree, there is a problem, but it is solved easily. This information otherwise from the acquirer the notary can get from nowhere. If he or she gives this, it's okay, but if he or she was silent, there are no questions to the notary in this sense, and notary risks nothing. Only the acquirer risks something, because the colleagues of Anatoly Morisnichenko will come to him or her and they will ask the question whether there will be coming over the ceiling, and they will put the question about consistency. Thank you, Evgen, and we are coming to Irina Berneska, the vice president of Notary Chamber of Ukraine, and she knows nobody as anybody else better what is going on in the notary field. First of all, I would like to congratulate everyone because the work was done huge. and work, and this work started not today and not yesterday, but the system of registration of property rights onto to property. When we started to register the property rights, looking at the cadastre and put the rent in mass, which existed on the paper, on papers which were so old, and we updated them and checked, and today this is the market of the land becomes so big. The market of the land was always existing. We were speaking now about moratorium plots, but nothing changed for notaries. We worked with plots for a long time, and for a long time we created a very good notary practice, a good procedural practice, and on how to behave with land plots. And as for the feelings and moods, the notaries are not afraid. They are not afraid about it at all. They tried to do the best. They under the huge pressure. We take one reform for another. Maybe something is bigger for the notaries. The big opening. Landscapes for the agrarian producers, it's something, but for the notaries who live in the stress constantly when they get one new block of their work after another, and we received new innovations in our activities, in the registration, new people who are coming to us. They will be introducing something new in their property, and they introduce money in different ways, and it will be moving. And the person who will come to the notary did not feel the burden and this turbulence which is on the shoulder of the notary. It was really sad that we lack today in correct way automation of technical processes, and this automation of technical processes takes lots of time from our activity, our work. But what has been done before the opening of the land market? We put lots of inheritance from the register into our files since 2013 to 21. We registered lots of rent, lots of agricultural use, and since the 1st of July we have the new register, updated register of the property rights, and people doubt it a lot, but it is updated for the burdens and for the transfer of property. And we got from the Geocadastre before the 1st of July, we were doubting a lot whether we can get the access to the Geocadastre, and maybe it is so easy for people who listen to us, just open and close, but integration of notaries with their electronic keys and to such a huge system of Geocadastre. And in Geocadastre there are so many registers who are arguing with the Geocadastre, and it's a so difficult process looking at the Registratory Acts, and we are so thankful to Geocadastre, which we were connected, and we are connected connected from the head office, from local offices. Some people could connect to the Geocadastre with difficulties or not, but they all of them are connected, and they are trying to work on the Geocadastre system to find out what can we get out of that, which percentage of lands we can miss. And since the 1st of July, state property fund was connected as well, and the people got the alternative to expert evaluation. If you wanted to go to assess the property, you go to the private assessor and you get this for money. But if you want to get it for free, you go to the state service, and with your own key you create this certificate. If it is good, so you go to the notary and you continue. If the person is not satisfied and if he thinks that the expert who is a professional and who takes into consideration these or that characteristics, and will get a better evaluation of the property, which will be more suitable for the situation of the citizen, goes to the private assessor, and the chamber assures and provides the notaries with free connection to QR control system for search of data. And I saw in the social network that a unified state register of legal entities was updated as well. And I would like to orient our listeners that opening of the land market does not mean that you open something and you close it in 2 months. So we just changed the order and procedure which will be used in Ukraine. It's a long process which will come one by one, which one point from to another point, notaries and experts will be adopted. We will continue to work over different problems. We will react properly and make changes in legislation. I would like to say that opening the land market, there is a mentioning that the 1st of July influenced the owners of land plots. How we see this when people come and the owners in villages, they which have 2, 3, 4 hectares, they didn't come by the 1st of July to us how to sell it, but they came with a need to get the consultation. What are the options to sell? What are the procedures? What are the guarantees from the state? And the main question from them, how to keep the land. And those who want and who wish, those who came to buy, the potential buyers who look for this very valuable land as an asset, and they ask also, they are not in a hurry anymore. But here you speak here, but people say that it is not correct. The notaries are not afraid, but I do not say that everything is so okay. I do not say that the system is ideal. I would like also so that our citizens understand. There was a notary recently who certifies the alienation of agriculture land contractor. So when they printed all the confirmation, she used a 1.5 package of printer paper, and so to cope with such a task, the notary should decide for many for a long time, go through from 20 to 60 points of checking, and the people are completely different. There are no similar persons. The deeds cannot be similar, never. So the land plots could not be the same. People can have several managers. They do not they just refuse. People, the notaries in my district where I was working, they're saying just come in September. I heard that myself. They cannot say come in September. There are lists of refusals, points of refusals, and if today the situation says that the notary whom you contact and the notary who are not connected to state registered. So there were notaries who tried to connect it to the register, and the other registers were broken, so they needed to buy new computers, new systems. What recommendations we can give to such people who what organizations should exist in their work in every region? There are representatives of the territory, representative of Ministry of Justice. In every region there are offices of notarial chamber. So you have the contacts of both organizations, and by the 1st of July, the Ministry of Justice and notaries and notary chamber, they did all actions so that all people in the districts who were grouped under the new territorial distribution. So you should look at the limits of the new district and what notaries they are authorized to work in such districts. And the reform of notarial district, they increased the number of notaries whom to contact. So the selection on the choice of notaries, of course, there could be complaints, and many complaints could not be grounded. And if a person comes to the notary and asks, "Can I sign this agreement?" And what I should answer to the person who does not bring the contract on the ownership up. So the picture should be like this: you come with your document to the notary and looking for the algorithm. Why now we have a step-by-step inclusion, connection of all participants of a land market into this land market? Because our people they are looking for the price. We do not speak about the variance when it is only just a person of problem of finding the solution. We are coming to the situation when
So it's very important to understand what reasons could be behind when the person is refused to have their agreements notarized. You know, today, this process on land market launching, actually it covers very many different areas. And notaries were invited to the process, realizing the situation. What is on our shoulders? We are talking over the problems here. If there is a problem with the notaries, that when they are not fully ready, we should not say that everything is okay and goes okay. The land parcel of agricultural land cannot buy out as running shoes, because the request from the society was very important. First of all, land concentration, engagement of foreigners, means testing, for example, when the person wants to buy this or that land parcel. Actually, for the first phase, here we have set up certain limits. Maybe the procedure is complex, but this situation should be fully followed by the notaries, because we have 60 issues to be covered in the algorithm depending on a specific case. We realize that actually the notaries should on their judgment see how much time it will take them according to the algorithm to notarize this deal. I cannot agree with the statements and sayings that people say. For us, it's very important to understand in what situation the claims could be against this or that notarized land buy and purchase agreement. For us, it's very important. For us, it's important to understand actually to defend the right of the owner of the land who wants to sell the land, as well as the rights of the taker of the land who would like to acquire. For us, it's very important to understand all these details, what nuances could arise, both on the part of the seller and buyer. The notaries also are interested not to have more arguments against the deal that have been concluded between the seller and taker. With regards to the interaction, dynamics, getting ready all the papers, actually we are provided with certain instructions by the notary chamber, and for us it's very important to follow all these instructions, because for us it's very important to understand what documents to be submitted by the taker. And for us it's very important also to inform the parties of this deal how much time it will take in order to get this agreement notarized. We are discussing very different issues during our roundtable discussion. Unfortunately, our time is limited. What I would like to say, today notaries, you know, very often notaries work overtime in order to sort out all the issues related to this or that case. They really work overtime. For us, it's very important to have more and more automation in this process because notarization of agreements, we understand it's so important, but this should be also given through the support of the notaries. So maybe we should simply say that in order to get fully ready, notaries need more time. Maybe we can reward slightly your comments you said on the current work of the notaries. I should say that today we have already notarized a number of the land sell and buy deals. And actually, we are above the limit of our time. We have a representatives of different territorial communities that would like to join our roundtable discussions. Actually, when we speak about the farm economy lands, here also, for us it's important whether there were requests on the part of some. First of all, I would like to greet you here. I'm the head of the Palanska Amalgamated Territorial Community. My name is Ruslan Yaremchuk. We have farmers who have really very small acreage of land. Some of them have already acquired it in ownership. There are some farmers who have a very big acreage of land, more than 50 hectares. but there are also another category of farmers that had a sort of a disguised leaseholding. Actually, they have registered this land on the third persons, but actual users and owners are completely different people. But for us, it's important to understand that actual right of ownership on the land could be when it is the deal is fully notarized. And actually, we understand what is allowed with the notary offices today. Technically, the registered are getting ready. And we understand that this is the this is a step-by-step process. So we understand that many more participants of the market will be switching to the process. We understand that this scope of deals will be increasing with every month. We understand that there are buyers who are looking for the most attractive lands, agricultural lands. There are also sellers probably who would like to sell their parcel of lands. And but actually today for us, it's mainly very many people are not interested today to sell the land parcels, but they would like to get their ownership registered. So there are very many different situations. For us, it's very, very important to see in future what will be the impact of all these processes on the economy in general and on the agro-economy, agro-sector in general, and local governments, actually, they also are very curious to know how the process will go. They would like to see what difficulties they could encounter. They realize that there are certain actors in this arena who would like to get the ownership of on the land on no-cost basis. We understand that there are very many different actors in this arena, but we understand that there are some clarifications both from the judicial system. We understand that there were very many acts and papers early developed with different clarifications, but some of those were not workable. You know, no cost buyout. Is it the benefit to the territorial community or not? Your opinion. The ban to buy and sell communal lands, you as a representative of territorial community, maybe you believe that it is better that the full control on the communal lands should be with the territorial communities. It's difficult to forecast today what will be the overall attitude of all the communities to this or that issue. I believe that a sort of a step-by-step process, it's much better than a sort of a speedy taken decisions. And as to the centralization, actually, not fully all the rights have been transferred to the territorial communities. You know, for example, as to the we understand geospatial planning is so important. We realize that this is very critical for the future buyers of the land. Actually, this instrument is not fully available today, as you understand. We would like to thank all the participants of our roundtable discussion. We will be wrapping up. We believe that those who joined our event today get additional information. We'll be meeting in future. Have a nice day. I would like to thank our